Hi everyone, how are you all doing? So it just so happens that the last three films that I've watched, each of them had three central characters in them. So hey, that's a great subject for a video, isn't it? So why don't I do this? First up, we had this film, The Glass House from 1972. A really interesting one, this. This has got Alan Alda in it. It's directed by Tom Gries. Tom Gries has directed films such as 100 Rifles, Will Penny, and a couple with Charles Bronson, which included Breakout and Breakheart Pass. Now, this one is co-written by Truman Capote, the writer of In Cold Blood. And what we have here is Alan Alda playing a university professor who is sentenced to 1 year in prison for manslaughter. And when you see what happens, you'll understand exactly what he did and the kind of injustice, if you like, of why he's actually ended up in prison. But nonetheless, that's the interesting aspect of this. Now, why I say this is a three-character play is that on the same day that he starts his internment in prison, which is at a prison in Utah, we also have a prison guard who's starting at the prison at the same time, and he's played by Clu Gulager. And then the other significant character that we have in this is that when the professor is inside the prison, there is, of course, one of the strong prison inmates who really sort of runs the block and wants to, if you like, coerce the professor into doing things for him. And that character is played by Vic Morrow. You may remember Vic Morrow tragically died on the set of Twilight Zone, the movie, in 1983. So yeah, this is a really interesting drama. What really makes this one fascinating is that it was actually filmed within an actual prison in Utah. And you really get that sense of it. There was actual prisoners that are involved in the making of this film. And you really get that claustrophobic sense of prison life there. That sound, that clamoring, echoey sound of prisons and the constant sort of noise that there is in there. Alan Alda really plays this well. He really comes across as this sort of mild-mannered man who really doesn't, if you like, deserve to be in prison, but he's there, and he then really kind of has to learn to adjust to his time there and just how he's going to deal with this slippery character that's played by Vic Morrow. So yeah, really interesting drama, this, really well played out. Unfortunately, my DVD copy is a bit washed out. This was a made-for-TV movie from 1972. It did win an Emmy for Tom Gries for his direction on this. But yeah, this is well worth seeking out if you can get to see it. Now, you may remember a while back on my channel I talked about this documentary film, which is Sing Sing Thanksgiving, or it's called here Live at Sing Sing. So yeah, this was filmed actually the year before, in 1972, in Sing Sing prison just outside New York. And you may remember, if you did happen to see that video, that I was really talking about how incredible that film was for being filmed within an actual prison, and you getting to see the actual sort of prisoners there and the cell life. So yeah, interesting really that this is filmed around the same time, different state, different prison, but yeah, well worth seeking out, The Glass House. Now, next is this film from 2003, and it's called The Dreamers, and it's directed by Bernardo Bertolucci. Now, first of all, just look at this silly DVD case, which says here it's an erotic thriller. It definitely is not an erotic thriller, so anybody who picks up DVDs just looks at the case and sort of thinks, oh yeah, this might be what I want to watch tonight. No, you're going to be really disappointed and perhaps shocked as well. So what The Dreamers is, you just need to bear in mind that this film is based in Paris in 1968, which was a time of real turbulence for France. And the three characters that are in this film really are, if you like, a metaphor for the times. So we have Michael Pitt playing an American student who comes to Paris. He meets two people who are brother and sister, Siamese twins, if you like, that are played by Louis Garrel and Eva Green. And they're cinephiles. They are all at the Cinémathèque Française in Paris, and they begin a relationship where they invite Michael Pitt's character back to their home, and he ends up staying with them for a while in their apartment. And all the time that they are there, they then embark on lots of different activity where they were exploring sexual interests, they're exploring their cinematic interests, political ideals, and things of that nature. Now, what you really need to bear in mind with this film is that there were a few things going on in Paris at this time. So the Cinémathèque Française is hugely important in terms of the French New Wave movement. And so really this was a cinema that was being managed by Henri Langlois, and he was dedicated, if you like, to preserving different types of film and exhibiting them, and all the filmmakers that ended up being important in the French New Wave would go to this cinema. So people like Jean-Luc Godard and François Truffaut, Louis Malle, Claude Chabrol. So anyone that was a cinephile, they would go to the Cinémathèque Française. But in 1968, there was activity to oust Henri Langlois from the Cinémathèque Française. And at the same time in Paris, there was a whole load of turbulence going on at the local university in Nanterre. There was a student uprising. There was feelings of oppression. There was lots of disenchantment after the Vietnam War still. And just a whole ambition to change things, and so it was a real turbulent time in terms of wanting sexual liberation and change of ideals and less bureaucracy and a whole load of other things which I'm not even going to pretend to understand, because I don't really know that period of history too well, but all I know that it was a hugely turbulent time. So really the Dreamers is meant to be a signifier, if you like, of the turbulence of that time, and it's called The Dreamers because really these characters are thinking about all the different scenarios they would want to happen, and they are actually woken from this dream at the end of the film by a stark event that happens. Now this film is an NC-17 rating, and that is because it does feature a huge amount of full frontal nudity from Eva Green and Michael Pitt and Louis Garrel. So yes, that will interest you or disinterest you perhaps, but yeah, The Dreamers is an interesting film. Now for me, I must admit, I think the way that Bertolucci does this, I mean, he is a director that doesn't shy away from sex. He is the director of The Last Tango in Paris, after all. But yeah, I'm not sure if this was kind of the movie that was really for me. I actually find the documentary, if you like, more interesting about the times and what was going on then. But what does really work in the film is that because these characters are cinephiles, there's loads and loads of references to French New Wave films. So, for example, Eva Green's character says that she was born in 1959. Now, if you think about that for a second, it wouldn't really work, because that would mean she was only 10. But what she means by that is that she was born when she saw Godard's A Bout de Souffle, Breathless, and saw Gene Seberg on the screen, and that really changed things for her. So yeah, there's loads of references to films. They reenact a moment from A Bande à Part, where they do that race through the Louvre. There's references to Freaks and Scarface and Blonde Venus, and yeah, lots of other films. So definitely in terms of cinema history and French New Wave, trying to get an understanding or an appreciation of that, then there's lots to enjoy here. It is a bit of a confusing film otherwise, but yeah, The Dreamers from Bernardo Bertolucci. And then finally, from 2001, we have this film, Tape, which is directed by Richard Linklater, and it stars Ethan Hawke, Robert Sean Leonard, and Uma Thurman. And really what this film is kind of like it's a one-act play. It's adapted from a play by Stephen Belber. But yeah, this is a one-act play that's all set within the confines of a hotel room, and it's shot on grainy digital sort of camcorder video. But yeah, Richard Linklater manages to get some really impressive edits and camera angles within this confined space as we follow three characters here. So basically we have Ethan Hawke as a kind of firefighter who's a drug dealer and a slacker, if you like, and he's meeting up at a hotel where he has invited over a friend, an old university friend, played by Robert Sean Leonard, who's now a filmmaker and who's about to actually show a film in the town. And as the night wears on, they begin to explore their previous reminiscences of life 10 years ago back in university, and how they both were loving the same girl who's played by Uma Thurman. And then we get into aspects of what happened when they all encountered each other. So yeah, this is a really interesting film, so heavy in dialogue. Like I say, it's all really intensely focused within this one room. So yeah, it's very dialogue heavy, but yeah, and you're kind of initially wondering where is this all going to go, but it definitely ramps up in terms of the story. Now, I'm not entirely sure if I love the story ultimately, but it's definitely an interesting one, and definitely a fascinating play, and they perform it. All three characters perform this really, really well, and it actually really makes me realise how much I miss seeing Uma Thurman, because I haven't really seen her in much for a while now, and she's excellent in this. But yeah, Ethan Hawke and Robert Sean Leonard, obviously they had been together before in Dead Poets Society a few years before this one. But yeah, Tape is definitely an interesting film from director Richard Linklater, who also did the Before trilogy and Boyhood. So yeah, definitely worth seeking out. Okay, brief reviews there of three films, no particular connections with them other than they've all got three main characters in them. I hope that was of interest. Please do come back for some more videos. I hope to see you again. All the best to you. Bye-bye.